Good evening. Welcome. My name is Sterling McKinley. I'm your host of the podcast, and the podcast is called In the Black. So, this podcast, every week, we interview minority entrepreneurs and we share their challenges, their struggles, their success stories. But most importantly, going off the name In the Black, we talk about how you can build a profitable business. So, let's get into it tonight. Tonight's guest is Mr. Paul Farrell, also known as Paul Farrell. And he's going to talk to us tonight about his entrepreneurial journey and about the work he does now at Securityplus Federal Union and how he works with diverse communities, helping them not only with baking, but also do financial education seminars. So, saying that, Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sterling, for having me. I'm super excited and honored to be a part of this podcast. So,
Great, great. Thanks for being here. So let's get started. So I gave a brief intro, but take 30 seconds and tell everybody, tell the audience who you are and what you do.
yeah, so my name is Paul Farrell. I am from Silver Spring. Went to a high school in Blake, if anyone's from Montgomery County, and went to school in Stevenson University. So right now, I work for Securityplus Federal Credit Union. My role is a community relations representative, and my job is to equip businesses and employees with the schools to change the skills, sorry, to change their financial future. And so I help them about teaching them about budgeting, how to buy a car, their credit score. That's one of our biggest areas where we like to tackle, and just kind of educating people who look like me and you, even the larger community around how they can prepare themselves financially in the future.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thanks for that. So let's go back in time. How did you get started? How did you get to doing what you're doing today? So tell me that story. How we got to be here.
Yeah, that's a good story. So, as a young, hungry college student, I had a really hard time of finding internships. And
Hmm.
so, one of the first things that I did was I reached out to my colleague who has his own catering business, and I was like,
Okay.
"Hey, look, man, I really need an internship. I've been struggling." So he invited me to the Congressional Black Caucus networking
Oh,
mixer,
awesome. Okay.
and it was amazing. It was like one of my first experiences at one of those events, and I ended up connecting with a guy named Nicholas Wiggins, and he later introduced me to another networking mixer and asked for my help there. But it was really interesting. That event was kind of like a program where they would have a bunch of high school and college students come. They would teach them job readiness skills, and then they would have them interview upstairs to all these big companies. And so he was super overwhelmed at the time because there was a lot going on. So I literally just told him, "Hey, let me just take your phone. Let me be your assistant for the day, and let me help you do your job better." And he was just blessed by that. We were able to form a relationship where he needed a lot of marketing help, and
Okay.
so I ended up taking his website, which didn't really exist at the time, and growing
Right.
it to to like where it was today.
Oh,
And
awesome.
so, yeah,
Great. I
yeah.
like
So
what you said though. I think it goes back to being the entrepreneur. So you didn't wait for something to fall in your lap. You took charge and you made it. And I think that's it's really important having that that attitude where we're not waiting for things to happen, but we make
yeah,
change
for
and we
sure.
make our own opportunities. So that's really cool. But one cool thing that I stood out when you talking was what
Hmm.
I got from it is relationships, and you kind of
Yeah.
do that now. And once again, you
Hmm.
can apply for jobs all day, not get a response,
Yeah.
but just knowing somebody, knowing the right person. So talk about that. Talk
Yeah.
about even now in your current position with Security Plus. How do you use
Yeah.
relationships to kind of get ahead?
Yeah, for sure. First, I just want to say thank you to Nick because I don't think
Yeah.
that I would be where I am today if it wasn't for
Right.
Nick and just his trust in me and just giving me the
Right.
opportunity
Hmm.
to just become a leader in that space. And right now, that's kind of what I do now is building
Right.
relationships with people and just making sure that I can just help in any way. Like literally when I reach out to companies today, like I had a conversation with a local snowball shop called Ice Queens in Locust Point. So if you guys are
Okay.
ever trying to get a snowball, that's a place to check out. But literally just asking them like, how can I help you?
Right.
Like how can I help your business be successful? And that's one of the
Yeah.
things that I feel like during the pandemic, a lot of
Yeah.
people have been leaning on businesses to do is like
Right.
not just say that you care about small businesses and communities,
Right.
but
Right.
actually be there and be present and create resources for them. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the cool things about my job is that I get to do that
Right.
finally as I get to see the change that we're making here at Security Plus.
Yeah, I love what you said. Help. If you can help somebody, I think that's the ultimate form of marketing because, if
Yeah.
you can teach me how to do something, I'm going to remember that. And then when it's
Oh
time
yeah.
for me to come, back for a service, I'm going to remember you. So I think helping is
Oh
something
yeah.
that, just makes sense. At the end of the day, it's, not even about sales. Let me help you. And through that helping, I think how
Yeah.
we build those really strong bonds because,
For sure.
in marketing is that saying that content is king. But,
Mm,
I believe that community is king. When you build that strong
mm,
community, and not only one time, building community
yeah.
is a way you build repeat business. People come back to you again
Yeah.
and
For
again.
sure.
Why? Because you're helping and you're serving. So I think that's very key. So I know you're young. I know you're starting out in your career, but what are some of the challenges you had, breaking into, being an entrepreneur and what you're also doing now?
Yeah, that's a that's a pretty good question. The first challenge that I experienced was taxes. I did not realize how
Okay.
how you really had to be by the books. But and on a
Right.
serious note, being very strategic
Hmm.
in the back end side of things, so I really
Right.
had to be particular as far as like how I wrote my contracts when I'm sending to prospective
Right.
clients, and also understanding my target audience. That was so
Exactly.
hard in the beginning, like
Yeah.
trying to figure out like, okay, how is my services going to help this
Hmm.
specific group of people?
Right.
And I had to go through a lot of client challenges where, I was getting a lot of referrals,
Hmm.
and I was just taking on business, and
Right.
I didn't really say no, and I got
Okay.
caught in a trap, and not really
Right.
vetting a particular client and saying like, okay, can my service actually benefit
Yeah.
where you're trying to go, as far as
Right.
your goals in marketing and social media. So I kind
Right.
of learned like, you know, when you're first starting off, to definitely like set your business model up first. And
Yeah.
some people say just, just do it, which is fine as well. I mean, I think that's kind of
Right.
what I did naturally. But actually understanding like who you're trying
Hmm.
to, change that messaging and focus it for a
Right.
specific target audience. Like
Right.
that was something that I struggle with, and I feel like adds
Yeah.
a lot of value to your business once you're able to master that. And also just
Yeah.
building relationships with your clients. Like a lot of
Hmm.
people, they work with you not so much. I mean, your products are amazing, like your services are
Right.
great, but they really invest in people. And I'm
Exactly.
so blessed that people invested in me, to be like a young entrepreneur and just
Right.
starting out,
Hmm.
to be able to say like, okay, they can go with this person, but they know Paul and they know his
Right.
services, they know his heart
They can
behind the
trust
work
you.
that he's
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they trust me. So, yep.
Right. Yeah. You said two things there. I think that are important for any entrepreneur. If you're starting out or if you've been in business for 10 years, because, I deal with
Mhm.
clients now that are, make millions of dollars, but still have some of the
Yeah,
issues. But like you said, I think having that foundation is key because, what I found in my own business, if you skip those beginning steps or phases, they'll come
yeah.
back to bite you. you know,
Oh, yeah,
if
for
your
sure.
contract is not the right way, if your targeting is off, that's work that you have to do again. So yeah, I think that the
Yeah.
planning is really key, making sure that you actually sit
Hmm.
down and take the time to make sure that everything
Yeah,
is set up in a way that makes sense for you. Um,
yeah, for
but the
sure.
next thing I heard you say too is once again going back to relationships. And I tell everybody, I think one of the most underlooked things and overlooked things in business is just being nice. I
Mm,
feel like through the
yeah,
years, I've gotten so much business referrals. Why? Because I'm nice, and I'm not
yeah,
faking. I'm actually saying, thank you when you give me a
yeah,
check. I'm gonna do more than you pay me to do. I'm gonna go above and beyond, and
for
then
sure.
being consistent. People want
Yeah,
somebody that's trustworthy, somebody that they can count on, and I think those are the things
yeah,
that really matter. And it's funny, we call those things soft skills, but they're really not. Like that's
yeah,
really
they're not.
all
Yeah.
that matters.
Hmm.
I look at my career, when I started, when I did now, and some things change, but I think why I've been able to have success is because people can trust me because I'm
Yeah,
consistent. I'm going to do what I say I'm going to
yeah,
do, and that's something that's so important. So, as
yeah.
business owners, we get so enamored with being on every social media app, on having
Hmm.
nice flashy business card, but it all comes down to, can I trust you? Are you going to do
Exactly.
what you say you going to do? And at the end of the day, the old saying, people work with people that they like. So,
Exactly.
do they like you? So, that was great. So, thanks for sharing some of your challenges. But what
Yeah.
are some of your big wins you had so far?
Yeah. Ooh, I've had some big ones, and it's kind of
Okay.
crazy that I was reflecting on it too before this.
Right.
So one of my first biggest contracts as like me establishing myself as a kind of like a virtual event planner was working with Values Partnership, which is a small, well, not small, they're growing. They're in DC, and they had a contract with Kanye's Sunday service,
Oh wow.
and I was offered the opportunity to work with their team, as
Right.
a contractor there, and that's kind of like where I took off.
Okay.
I was working with New Design, and they have a lot of contracts with Hyundai Hope on Wheels,
Okay.
which
Great.
is a nonprofit for Hyundai. So whenever a car gets donated, they
Right.
donate the proceeds towards pediatric cancer research. And so I had the opportunity to work with New Design as well on that, doing all of their engagements across the nation. And so that's
Right.
kind of like really where I really took off and where the money really started coming in.
Okay.
And I was just super, super grateful for that. Super,
Yeah.
super grateful for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we talked a lot about you being an entrepreneur. So
Mhm.
if you can kind of give me that in between story, how you got to be an entrepreneur, which you still are, but now
Mhm.
working, with NLCP and now with the bank as well. So tell me that kind of journey, that the in between, how you kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, that in between was felt like a long one, but it was short.
Right.
So I was working for Enterprise Rent a Car in between. So just
Okay.
a little bit of backstory. Those positions that I had as an entrepreneur were on the side. Obviously, I'm pretty sure a lot of people
Right.
started out that way, just grinding after work. And so that kind of allowed me to also focus on my 9 to 5,
Right.
where I was working at Enterprise and I was, just kind of brainstorming what's next for me. And I really had a passion to work for, a civil rights group and
Okay.
just being civic engagement. I had a passion for event planning. So I was just kind of like, what else is out there? So I looked at the
Right.
NAACP. I had worked with them in the past through contract work. And so with that job, obviously it was very, very fruitful. I had a lot of experience with the Image Awards, with the convention. I had an amazing team of Black women that I worked with, and it was
Right.
like the first team that I've been a part of like that. They're awesome and they're crushing it right now. Their marketing team is amazing. I'm not sure if
Right.
you've seen their website. They've changed, and
Yeah, I
so
have.
yeah, it's awesome. So shout out to NAACP. I love them so much. I'm just very grateful for the opportunities they gave me
Right.
because without them, without Nick, I wouldn't really be where I am. And so from that
Right.
transition, I really just kind of sat back and said, okay,
Hmm.
what else can I do to impact people
Right.
in a positive way? And Security Plus just so happened to reach out to me and just say,
Okay.
we want to grow our marketing department. We
Right.
want to, push out financial education and financial literacy to
Okay.
represented and underserved communities. And
Right.
that is kind of where I landed, where I am today. And
Okay.
so
Great.
through my role now, that's literally what the job is. Like I can be able to speak to big companies like the Social Security Administration. That's kind of
Okay.
where we were formed and kind of split off as a credit union. And
Right.
I led a presentation for over 400 people, and it was like my
Oh wow.
first presentation.
Right.
It was nerve wracking, but I think the thing that I walked away from that was just the reaction from everyone. Like I
Yeah.
got so many calls personally just thanking them for the information that I
Right.
provided. And nobody had ever told them about their credit card that if they were ever late, that their interest rate would raise to
Right.
29.99%. Like some of those things, a lot of banks, bigger banks don't talk about, but the credit unions would
Exactly.
spend the time to talk about it. And so that right there just kind of hit home and just provided value to what I'm doing and the work that I'm doing every day. And so I'm
Yeah.
just super grateful to be able to have that impact on people, no
Right.
matter how young I am. Like I'm talking to people of
Yeah.
all ages
Right.
about the one thing that affects us all, credit. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome that you're able still to help people. Because at the end of the day, I think at the end of the day, I don't care what you do. You sell coffee or pizza, you design buildings,
Yeah,
you're still helping people. So I think that's awesome. So let's
for sure.
talk about some of those 101 credit things that we should be thinking
Hmm.
about, as far as like credit or business financing. Because once again, I feel like certain communities, minority communities,
Hmm.
necessarily just sometimes don't know. Or I
Yeah.
think in my experience, sometimes we know things, but we're scattered.
Hmm.
And somebody needs
Yeah.
to come in and say, okay, this equals this, and you can see
Yeah,
the
for
light
sure.
bulb go off in the head. Oh, that's what that
Yeah.
means. So talk about that. What are
Yeah.
some of your financial education webinars like, and kind of how do they work?
Yeah. Yeah. So our financial education webinars are like basically nobody does anything like it. We
Okay.
actually spent a lot of time in developing the program and actually hired
Right.
an outside party to help us,
Okay.
fine tune it.
Right.
So what makes our program really special and our webinars really special is we're able to, after the call, do a free one-on-one personal consultation with anybody who joins, and we teach them 4 quick steps to raise their credit score to 700 or above. And
Oh
so
wow.
through that process, we do a soft pull of their credit. That's how we're able to see their credit report, see their credit
Right.
score, see what type of activity they have on there. And, we're able to say, okay, if you do this, very specific. So if you don't open up 5 credit cards at Target or,
Right.
whatever the case may be, this is how you'll get to that score. And some of the tips that we provide is one, just not having a lot of inquiries on your credit report.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people when they're trying to look for a car or a house, definitely for a house, that people either close out their credit cards or they get a new car. I think I seen a video on LinkedIn about
Right.
that. It was really, really funny. The guy was explaining like why would you get a car right before you buy a house, but some of those type
Yeah.
of things like being very conscious of who you let pull your credit
Right.
is a big one.
Yeah.
And then also not closing out any trades or big loans. So we
Right.
dumb it down to credit cards. So if you have a credit card that, like for example, me, I opened up a credit card when I was 18 at a local credit union. It was the only
Right.
place that would give me a credit card.
Right.
So that is that's the longest
What was the
standing.
limit? It's like 250 was the limit.
It was like 500.
Okay.
It
All
was
right.
super low. It was super
Right.
low.
Right.
So that was the first credit card I opened. So that's what
Okay.
we call a trade. Anything that's
Right.
collateralized. If I was to close that, that would impact my
Right.
history as far as
Mm-hmm.
my credit. And so
Right.
those are some of the gems that we talk about. If
Okay.
you have a credit card that you first open, never close it.
Right.
And even if you are thinking about closing a credit card, you have to weigh the cost. If you close
Right.
that credit card, that's going to negatively impact your score. So you might just want to keep that
Mm-hmm.
open, pay the annual
Right.
fee, and stuff like that. So those are some of the quick
Okay.
gems. Our
Yeah.
seminars are super, super fun and educational, but it's
Right.
just something that we're doing to make sure that we can make a
Okay.
positive difference in the community.
Great. So that sounds like it's kind of both, but more of the consumer side. Are there any
Yeah.
services for minority-owned companies?
Oh yeah, for sure. So our small business lending department is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. It's actually run by the African American male. His name is Tony. So we have services tailored for small businesses because
Right.
we are a credit union. We can spend the time to not only say, okay, you want a loan for $10,000,
Mm-hmm.
but this is how you can get a loan for
Right.
$10,000. And that
Mm-hmm.
is really why I feel like credit unions are a lot different than bigger banks as
Right.
well, because we're not only saying, okay, you want to apply for that auto loan for
Mm-hmm.
$25,000, but we're saying, okay, if we can't approve you for this loan, this is how you can get there. And so we have a wide range of products and services. You can also check out Security Plus FCU, and that's where you'll find like a list of kind of like our small business lending. And I'll be happy to connect with anyone as well if they reach out to me on LinkedIn about that.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds great. Um, so yeah, we talked about a lot so far. I guess at this point, what's one
Mhm.
thing you could share to with your younger self if you go back in time? What's
Yeah.
one thing that you wish you improved on that would have made a difference now?
Yeah, oh, that's a good question. Man, that's a hard one. I think I think one is to just be patient. Like, I think that I'm a very patient person, but
Right.
I didn't understand how valuable it was to be a follower before I'm a leader.
Yeah.
Some people
Yeah.
say you gotta walk before you run. Like when you're,
Right.
in the gym, you gotta do baby steps before you can bench press that 300
Exactly.
pounds. So even in
Right.
just like entrepreneurship and in my career, I've had to become a personal assistant to know how to
Yeah.
be the
Hmm.
event lead. And so I think if I was talking to my younger self and just saying like, okay, it's going to take time, and it's still taking time. I'm still young and
Right.
still have a lot to go.
Yeah.
But just pick up the small gems and
Right.
be the leader that you want to
Hmm.
be under. Like I want to
Right.
be a transformational leader. Like I want to be someone
Right.
that can lead a team, but also can empathize with a team and can build those
Exactly.
relationships that are
Yeah.
important. Because people work for people who they like as well, like you said.
Right.
So something similar, but yeah. So I think that
Right.
would be one of the greatest advices I would tell my younger self.
Okay. All right. I like that. Yeah, I think it's important. This patience.
Yeah,
Even now, not trying to rush things, but things happening in the right time.
yeah,
And like you said too, you didn't say it, but I think having a mentor, somebody that you
yeah,
you can learn from, and I think, like you said, especially in business, sometimes we hear, fake it till you make it. Let's get started. Quit your day job. All that's
yeah.
great, but let's have a plan. Let's be strategic about what we
Exactly.
do, and kind of like what you're doing. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we're locked into this mindset of where we have to be one thing. We have to be
Mm,
working for ourselves all the time. But no, there's
yeah,
nothing wrong with having a 9 to 5 and still having, I don't like to call it side hustle, but having additional streams of income, things that you
yeah, for
do.
sure.
And, while you're working at 9 to 5, you can still be building that company. So one day, if you get to the point, you can leave and
Yeah,
do other things. So I think it's really, really important to have that mentality. And I think one thing that's helped me is just you have to always be learning. You have to be a forever
yeah,
student. I mean, constantly
yeah,
updating your resume because in this world of in marketing and business, every day things are changing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think especially now in this COVID stage we're in now, that's been 2 years and getting long.
Yeah,
I would say COVID changed a lot of things, and I think one of
yeah,
the things that really changed is video now because
mm,
we're not meeting in rooms anymore. We're not flying
yeah,
and going to a conference, but a lot of the things are virtual. So
yeah,
let's piggyback on that. You said you do
yeah.
some live streaming work. Talk about how you got into live streaming, and kind of what are some of the things you do in that.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. The pandemic kind of hurt my business as well a little bit because we were so used to doing events in person, and we had to
Right,
shift to a virtual setting. And I, like you said, learning really helped me out because I had to manage Zoom in this new age and try to figure
right,
out, okay, how can we take an in-person event and do it online? And
yeah,
how can we make it well produced? How
right,
can we make that experience the
hmm,
same? And so we actually started doing small events where we I had a huge client. I can't
right,
really name them, but had a huge client. They had
right,
a happy hour event, and I was tasked with leading Zoom. And so I spent like literally the entire week just learning about Zoom
right,
webinar,
right, right,
trying to brush up. I scheduled
mm,
a meeting with one of the Zoom techs to make
right,
sure I was doing everything correctly. And then that took off as well. Like I from that event alone, I had so many referrals, and we
right.
had so many virtual events after that.
Okay,
And I've got experience with Restream, which is huge as well.
right,
We had a huge client called Quelly TV. Shout out to Quelly TV,
okay,
where we did a lot of restream work for them as well.
right,
And so I think, as we are trying to figure out, how to connect people in this virtual setting,
hmm,
I feel like it's kind of a good thing that we've had the
yeah,
opportunity to do
it
that.
is.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, even when things get back to normal, if we can say that,
mhm,
I think still, video makes sense. Because I used to
yeah,
speak
for sure.
at different trade shows and conferences around the world, United States, and all the time and expense and the food and entertainment
Yeah,
flying when
it's a lot.
some of
Yeah,
that stuff could be done, virtually. And I think
yeah,
using video as a way to kind of fill those gaps in. So yeah, we may still meet in person,
yeah,
but using video to kind of fill in some of those gaps, I think
yeah, for sure.
is very very important. Um, but I think one key thing too that I think is important for any company is being fluid and being able to
Mm,
change. Because I
yeah,
think with the pandemic, you know, I think 40% of minority-owned companies went out of business. The numbers are
yeah,
huge because I think
yeah,
a lot of those companies weren't able to pivot not only
yeah.
video but online ordering.
Mm.
So I think it goes back to an entrepreneur. You always have to be learning. You
Oh
always
yeah,
have to be
always.
taking on additional skill set. And I tell a story a lot of story of Blockbuster. Blockbuster
Hmm.
used to be the biggest guy on the block. They had stores everywhere, and this thing called the internet came along, and they ignored the internet. They said, "Oh, this is a fad. It'll
Yeah.
go away." And they were wrong. They bet against
Mhm.
technology and then they lost. And here comes Netflix. And year after year, what
Yeah,
happened? Netflix just ate
yeah,
away at Blockbuster. And then now there's no Blockbuster. So I think, especially as minority companies, we have to be nimble. We have to
mm,
change with things because
yeah,
that's the market. Things can change like that. And I think now we're in this stage now where you have to be really adaptable. So, uh,
yeah, for
next, let's
sure.
go to a segment we just started called "Explain That Gram." So, what we do is we show a social media post from your Instagram account,
Hmm.
and I want
Hmm.
you to explain it. So, tell me what's going on in this picture. Let's talk about the shoes, and tell me about what was going on here.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm pretty sure, like many of people in my age rank, shoes have become like one of the biggest things ever. I was really on complex shopping as far as like the sneaker shopping channel on YouTube, and I saw these shoes. I was like, all right, I got to get those. So these are the Michigan Dunks. I love them. They're like a
Okay.
grail, honestly, to me. They weren't really, the shoe market is kind of weird because now it's like shoes that weren't as popular as are going for a lot of money. So,
Right.
but I love those shoes. Those are one that you can still get today for really cheap. But that picture, I was in New York taking a sabbatical. It was right. Um, it was the day of actually of the election,
Okay.
And I was working at NAACP at the time, and I was like, okay, let me go to New York so I can, take some time off. I had just finished helping the civic engagement team with their Black to Vote and trying to, help increase voters out there.
Right.
And I was with a friend, and I was like, man, this election has been rough. Like, I think
Yeah.
I've been super, sensitive, sorry, over just the election, and I was just kind of
Right.
nervous as far as the area I was in. But Biden won, and the city erupted, and it just kind of was a sigh of
Right.
relief. Like, the work that we've done, it worked.
Paid
Like
off. Yeah.
everything that we've been doing, it worked. So yeah, that
Yeah.
picture, I love that picture. I love those shoes, and that was just an amazing time. Like just to be
Yeah.
able to take a break, and that's one thing I don't think I learned as well early on is giving yourself time to reset. Like
Yeah.
those business ideas are not going to come if you're up all night every night. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I love that. Learning. When to say no, and one
yeah,
thing I had to do early on in business, even now, I have to schedule my leisure time.
mm,
You have to be like proactive about.
yes,
Okay, I'm not gonna work on at this time, these hours, because if not, you get burned out, and what can you do?
oh
So,
yeah.
next question. So, this live stream is ending soon. You get up, you
Mhm.
walk outside, and you find a lottery ticket for $10 million. What do you buy? What do you spend it on? Besides shoes.
Because that's definitely my first response. I would definitely end up Joe Nicole at Complex. Like, listen, I need to get on the show, so I need to
Right.
blow it back. But yeah, so I would definitely pay off my debt, but not only my debt, but my family debt, and
Okay.
I would tithe. That would be the first two
Yeah.
things. Definitely gotta thank God for that blessing, because
Right.
yeah. But I would definitely tithe, get back to the church,
Right.
and then I would also probably set a lot of money aside for the future as far as like
Okay.
investments in my retirement account.
Right.
I would probably also make sure that I set up my business to have other
Right.
businesses under it. So I would start
Yeah.
other ones. But mostly just saving and also, buying things that I want, like a
Hmm.
new car or those
Right.
shoes.
Right. Right. Right.
Yes, and a house because we definitely need houses out here. Like a lot of people
Yeah.
are renting. I think my family has been caught up in that too. Just like
Right.
the repetitive cycle of not having anything that you own.
Exactly.
Even the
Yeah.
stuff that these shoes, like I mean, some people charge it on credit cards and they're not owning it until they pay it off. So,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, that would be
Definitely.
one of the major things. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. So we're getting ready to close now. So quickly, tell
Mhm.
me what you're working on now and how can people find you online?
Yeah, so right now I'm just working on continue to grow my business as far as web design and event management services. I'm also at my current company. I'm working to really partner with local businesses in Baltimore. We really want to be the change that we want to see in our communities, and we really want to impact people's finances. So everything that we provide is free. So we are just here to serve you. Like my role, I'm getting paid to serve the community. Like no agenda, nothing like that. And so if you would love to connect with me, you connect with me on LinkedIn. Everything on my social is 53 Paul Farrell. If you click any of my bios, there will be a link tree with all of the information there as well. I have Twitter, Facebook, all of that, YouTube. And then my website is also linked there as well, where you'll be able to read more about me and see some of the work I've been doing in my portfolio section.
All right. Sounds great. Well, Paul, thank you again for your time tonight. It was very insightful. Just learning more about your journey. So once
Yeah.
again, thank you again. So let's move on to next week. So, and that was a great first episode. We're doing be here again next Thursday once again at 5 p.m. But next week guest is going to be Rosalind Hosley, and Rosalind Hosley is the owner operator of Studio 7 Salon and Spa here in Baltimore. So next time Thursday we talking with her. So thank you again. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you again on next Thursday. Take care. Bye.
Have a good one. Started. Do you want me to stay on?